The meeting's now live.
Thank you, Lewis. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this virtual meeting of members of the Letchworth Committee that is being conducted with members and officers of various locations communicating via audio, video and online. Before the meeting starts, I will explain how proceedings will work and confirm that members, officers and speakers are in attendance. Once I have undertaken a roll call, I will ask members to elect a chair for this meeting only. So for the roll call, when I call your name, please can you indicate your attendance to confirm the required members, officers and registered speakers are present and can hear and be heard. So, councillors, Councillor Amy Allen. Councillor Allen? I'll come back to you in a second. Councillor Daniel Allen.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Kate Aspinwall.
Yep, here.
You're in, Kate. Sorry, I was just going to give you apologies. You were going to be a bit late, but.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Bloxham.
Yes, here, thank you.
Thank you. I have apologies from Councillor Derbyshire, Morgan Derbyshire. Councillor Gary Grindle.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Terry Hone.
Present.
Thank you. I have apologies from Councillor David Levitt. Councillor Ian Mantle.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Prendergast.
I'm here.
Thank you. And I have apologies from Councillor Sue Nguala and Councillor Mike Rice and Councillor Adam Ruggiero Chaka.
Present.
Thank you. Officers Claire Morgan.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Anna Gavea and we have Lewis on IT and guest speakers. We have from Make Lunch Letchworth, Emma Vernon.
I'm here, yes.
Thank you. And Chris Brothers.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. And from Letchworth Garden City Heritage Foundation, Alistair Stewart.
Oh, Alistair said he might be a little bit late.
I think he's
He's
here.
It's,
Hi, I'm here.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you, Alistair.
Just mute as the system always does. It likes to default to that.
Thank you very much. And please note that this is not a formal meeting of the Letchworth Committee. At the request of members, this virtual meeting has been called to allow for informal discussion of ward matters and to keep members informed of local issues. This meeting has no decision-making power. The reports presented at this meeting are for members' information only. And this meeting is being streamed live onto YouTube and recorded via Zoom. Members should observe the usual guidance on the conduct of remote meetings as outlined in the previous remote and partly remote meetings protocol. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? No. In that case, the first order of business is to elect a chair of this meeting. Please note that any member elected as chair for this meeting will remain chair of this meeting only. As mentioned, this is not a formal meeting of the Letchworth Committee and any member elected to chair this meeting will not necessarily become the chair of the Letchworth Committee for the civic year 2021 to 22. Can I have nominations for chair, please?
I nominate Daniel Allen.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Mantle. And can I have a second?
Happy to second that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Grindle, are there any other nominations? No, in that case, I will confirm that Councillor Daniel Allen will chair this meeting and I will hand over to him to continue with proceedings. Thank you, Councillor Allen.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, everybody. Right, we have apologies for absence, as noted, Sue Nguala and Mike Rice, and from Morgan Derbyshire and Councillor Levitt. I don't believe we have any other apologies. Notification of other business for this. I have not. Is there any?
No, no other business.
Excellent. Okay. In that case, we will ask if we have any announcements. Do we have any announcements at all before we have our members of the public? No. Okay. In that case, please could we have our presentation, our first one, from Emma Vernon and Chris Brothers from Make Lunch Letchworth. They're going to give us a PowerPoint presentation in support of their application.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just wait for the presentation to appear. I think IT will sort that out. Is that right? Oh, here we go. Okay, well, firstly, thank you for inviting us. Thank you for considering our grant application. And if you've seen our application, you'll know that Make Lunch Letchworth is a project where we try to help tackle school holiday hunger for parents who struggle to feed their children, or give them a hot meal at least during the school holidays, when otherwise they'd receive free school meals during term time. And I'm sure you've seen similar things with Marcus Rashford and things like that over the summer. Can we have the next slide, please? So straight to the statistics. Alistair will be aware of these. These are in 2018 provided by Letchworth Garden City Heritage Foundation, and they're sort of a bit of a shock to read, really. You see 1 in 4 children in Letchworth are locked in poverty. It's a quarter of all children in Letchworth, which means they need help. And we try to provide some of that help as much as we can. And we know that parents worry about feeding their children during the school holidays, and also on top of that, we know that children worry as well about their parents being able to provide food for them, and that's a lot of worry, and that's concerning for anyone. But it's when children are aware that things are very hard for their parents, that's when we try to step in and help. Can we have the next slide, please? So Make Lunch was a national project, and it was set up by a charity called TLG, and that stands for Transforming Lives for Good. And it's operated across the country, and it's generally taken up by interested churches. The Make Lunch operation in Letchworth was initiated by New Life Church Letchworth, and it largely started off with a funding given to them by the Heritage Foundation. And just to say, New Life Church Letchworth is a registered charity, and it's a charitable incorporated organisation, and it provides banking arrangements for Make Lunch Letchworth. And Make Lunch Letchworth started in the summer of 2019, as you can see, as I've already said, initiated from New Life Church Letchworth, quickly developed into a partnership with several churches across the town. And potential families that we could help out were contacted through the Best Before Cafe. We have a good relationship with them. And flyers were dropped into local primary schools and children's centres. Make Lunch started out as an in-person lunch club, when we were actually allowed to meet other people face to face, and that was held at St Paul's Church Hall. And we also have a special arrangement with King's Community Church on the Jackman's estate. They have a very good relationship with families in that area that are in need of help, and we work alongside King's Community Church to provide for families on the Jackmans. We move on to the next slide, please. So when we had lunch club, this was a typical club session, and you see we have a core team, and they would arrive at 10 o'clock in the morning and leave at hopefully at 2:15 in the afternoon, with families there sort of a fraction of the time. And they'd come along, children could take part in various activities, and there'd be sort of games and things for them to play, and they'd also share and eat in the food, of course. And we had our volunteers sit down and eat with the families. We want to develop relationships with the families that come along. We want to let them know that help is available for them. And it gives a chance for children to get to know each other, to make friends, gets a chance for parents to socialise with other adults, and develop relationships in a safe environment. And we know that the hardship of these families often goes beyond food, and we want to develop those relationships, and we want to be able to offer any help that we can. And obviously the lunch club is something we're hoping to reintroduce this summer, if restrictions allow. And we move on to the next slide, please. Here you can see sort of a typical sort of club setup, some of the food available, some of the activities available in the top right. We're sort of getting objects out of ice blocks, all very good fun. And have the next slide, please. And you can see there on the tables some of the food that's collected, and our kitchen team that will prepare the meals. On our kitchen team, we have suitably qualified people in relation to food hygiene. That's a requirement from TLG onto sort of the make lunch groups. You have to have those suitably qualified people. Have the next slide, please. So in the summer of 2019, when we started, there were 8 sessions, 310 meals cooked. And at that time, we were serving 11 families, which consisted of 15 adults and 26 children. They were served by 39 volunteers across 6 different local churches, and yeah, that was how we started. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Now, the next 2 slides are some comments that you can read that we received after summer 2019 from people who attended. I'll just give you a chance to read those. And the next one, please. And the next slide, please. So in the rest of 2019, we actually operated in the October half-term break and fed 63 people. And at Christmas, we delivered Christmas hampers to our family from donations and things like that. And as 2020 started, we wanted to focus on the main school holidays of summer, Christmas and Easter. But, can I have the next slide, please? Of course, everything changed as COVID-19 pandemic kicked in, and we all went into lockdown. And this is when we had to sort of change our tact a little bit, and we developed the concept of delivery boxes. We have the next slide, please. Obviously, we were unable to sort of feed people, cook meals, so we had to sort of think of something different. And certainly in Easter 2020, we delivered hampers again in a sort of COVID-safe way to 15 different families. They're all sort of, traditional Easter goodies. Move on to the next slide, please. And in the delivery boxes, we provided the sort of raw ingredients, as we were allowed to do, for families to make their own meals, just the basic ingredients for a meal and a treat to be prepared at home by the families themselves. I'm going to have the next slide, please. And you can see again, they were sort of the boxes that we would deliver, all done in a COVID-safe manner. And along with, you'll see in the top right there, a sort of a folder with the word search on, along with the food, we provided age-targeted educational activities as well. And they were done in separate age groups. So there's under 5s, 6 to 8s, 9s to 11s, and 12 plus. So we provided those activities as well. And by encouraging the families to prepare food together, it's not something perhaps they might have done very much of, and certainly maybe not to sit down and eat together. And we hope to sort of, help people learn how to cook healthy meals, deepen those family bonds, and improve their general well-being. And we know over lockdown that has taken a bit of a bashing. And recipe boxes were packed and delivered by volunteers, and this was all done according to COVID guidelines. And can you move to the next slide, please? Once the families got their boxes, they could go to Facebook or YouTube, and they would see a video of one of our volunteers preparing the meal that they just got the ingredients for. So they could easily follow, they can pause it, and they can follow all the different steps needed. And the volunteers had exactly the same set of ingredients. So it's easy to follow. We had story videos, story sessions on video, and where possible, we'd also add luxury items where we were able to get them, things like shampoo and other sort of, hygiene products, things like that. Have the next slide, please. So in summer and October 2020, there were 7 sessions. We made approximately 770 meals, a main and a treat, and which served 32 families. And you can see that consisted of 40 adults and 110 children. So the numbers have been growing. Now the next slide, please. So for Christmas 2020, we came up with an idea where people who had been helping out, volunteers that we'd had, could adopt one of our families. Weren't given a lot of information, just the sort of the gender and age of children in the families, and no sort of data was sort of, no data rules were breached. But we could adopt a family and produce basically a Christmas bag. You can see pictures of various things that put in, and so over Christmas we actually delivered 53 of these amazing bags around Letchworth. And have the next slide, please. And the next one, yeah. This is a comment received after Christmas 2020, and this is exactly why we do make lunch, to be honest, and because we want to help people in our community who are struggling for whatever reason. There are all sorts of reasons, and these sorts of comments are wonderful to read and to receive. And can we have the next slide, please? So moving into 2021, so far we've had 2 recipe box deliveries over Easter, and as we approach summer, our idea is to use a blended model, using both the lunch club and the recipe box deliveries. We're operating over 4 weeks in August, and hopefully, restrictions permitting, we'll be running a lunch club on a Tuesday and doing box deliveries on a Thursday, over those 4 weeks, making 8 sessions. And we're hoping that we will be targeting 40 families this summer. In fact, I've been told today that we've just got a referral of another 6 families, so we're already on our way to that target. On current estimates, we say that each family are supported at an average cost of just over £8 for food per sort of session, and £4 for the activities. And up till now, we've obtained food where we can. We have a great relationship with local supermarkets who donate food, with the Best Before Cafe and the food bank, and we get one-off donations and just the generosity of people involved. But we want to be more sustainable, and we want to be able to plan for the future. And to do that, we need the sort of money behind us to be able to do that, rather than planning just we will be donated a certain amount of food this year when we don't know if that's true or not. But if we've got that money there, it enables us to plan better for the future and be more sustainable and help as many people as we possibly can. And obviously, as we expand the number of families that we help, obviously the cost of food and activities increase. And to be able to apply for and obtain a grant from North Herts District Council would be an absolutely amazing social benefit for the people of Letchworth, those that are struggling. And I think what makes us particularly unique is that we not only feed them the tummies, but we feed the minds as well with the activities we provide. We have some good educators in our team, and a lot of our activities are developed from those guys. And that I think that's what really makes us unique, that we do both of those things. Just have the next slide, please. And just to finish up, just thank you so much for listening, and we'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Chris. Does anybody have any questions for Chris? If you could raise your hand, blue hand, please. I will see. I've got one quick question for you, Chris, please. And Emma, my apologies. Do you cooperate with other charitable groups to make sure that people aren't double dipping, as it is? With Feed Up, Warm Up, they supply food hampers to a number of families in Letchworth. Do you make sure that you don't cross over?
I think Emma might be.
I'll take that.
Yeah, okay.
Hi. Yeah. Well, we try where we can, but as you know, with the GDPR restrictions, we can't share information. We do try and we know our family from our families from I'm from St Paul's Church. We know our families and we know which families receive other things, and so we maybe either scale it down or don't provide at all. But unfortunately, despite being, as you know, being on the food provision network, there isn't a definitive list of everybody. So we try our best, but we would rather people came and got fed. And I think one thing that Chris, the hampers, especially at Christmas, were all donations from people. So that didn't cost Make Lunch anything. Then the numbers of people who receive the recipe boxes and ultimately will come to the club tend to be a smaller number as well. So
thank you. I know that sounded a bit harsh in the questioning, but I know it is something that is regularly discussed with the Food Provision Network.
I would love to do something more where we just had one list to make sure that we were actually getting to the people that I'm more interested in, the people that don't get anything and how to reach those.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Grindle, I believe you're next.
Yeah, just, one's a point of clarification and then a question. And on the clarification, it was really, I note that the request is for a value, and I guess it's worth pointing out at the start, we're not making any decisions tonight and they'll be able to be made offline. But the request was for about £2,900. However, there's a request to the Heritage Foundation, if I've read the details correct.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're looking to discuss and agree a value of 900, the remainder, effectively. And that was my first point, just for the clarification of that. So I know that when we go offline and make a decision, it's the value of what we're agreeing. So, but is it likely that your £2,000 from the Heritage Foundation will be successful?
Well, you might have to ask Alistair that.
Yeah, we might. Yeah, we'll find out a bit later. But okay, so
I think that they're not meeting until I forget the date in July.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I hadn't started looking into it, and obviously it will have to be considered against our priorities and where those priorities sit. So I haven't actually started going into the background.
Okay. All right. Well, we need to bear that in mind when we're making our decision. And the other question really was more about on the question of referrals. How do you receive your referrals? Thank you.
They mainly come through either through ourselves through the different churches, or we go out to the schools. So originally the flyers went to the schools nearest to us. So for example, Pixmoor and Hillshot, and I mean nearest by us, I mean New Life Church and St Paul's. But actually word got round quite quickly and was shared across a lot of the schools in the first. So actually our families are from all over Letchworth. And word of mouth get out, and you have to register and you have to declare the fact that you are a low income family. And I say at the moment we're in the process of actually going out again to the schools. At Christmas we got referrals a lot from Hillshot, and we also, as I say, we've just had some referrals in from Knights Templar, and also some from Pixmoor as well. So it really is through the schools, or secondarily through the churches.
Okay. Councillor Pendergrast.
Thank you for that presentation. What a marvellous thing you're doing. It's fantastic. Gary actually stole my question. I was going to ask about the referral process. So I'm assuming that families can self-refer if they want. The reason I'm asking is that in my day job, I work with lots of vulnerable families, and I think that you would get a lot of uptake if you approached housing associations, because they work with a lot of different vulnerable families. So that's something to explore. But fantastic. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. Councillor Hone.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, and thank you for making those presentations, Emma and Chris. Chris, you emailed me as a county council on the 14th of April asking for some locality budget from me, and I responded that I'd spent all last year's. Well, we started
Yes.
a new year now. I responded the same day, so it might be worth, if you do have a hole somewhere. You want me to
I have emailed you. I have emailed you last week, I think, Councillor Holmes.
and I'll pick it up from that, and we'll see what we can do to help. I'll consider it from that perspective, which might add to it as well.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Excellent. Are there any other questions at all for our lovely couple from Make Lunch Letchworth? No? In that case, you're welcome to stay with us if you wish. We will now be going on to the next item on the agenda, and I can just double check with Claire. When roughly should Make Lunch expect to be hearing from us?
Well, I was just going to point out that the committee today, although it's an informal meeting, but you are able to make a recommendation. So that's what I'm going to ask you to do at some point, is to decide on an amount that you'd like to provide out of your budget. Make a recommendation, and then that will go into a delegated decision report to be signed off as the legal decision. So I will be looking for a recommendation from you. And it depends a bit how long it takes me to get the report signed off by the necessary parties. So it could be a couple of weeks, because it has to be signed off, and then it has to go into the members' information service and made public, which happens on a Friday. Then there's a 5-day call-in period before I can then process the grant. So a couple of weeks.
Let's make sure we get going ASAP for you.
Yes. I've prepared something in advance to send off tomorrow morning. All I need to do is put a figure in it.
Wonderful. Okay. May I suggest that we do that after we have heard from Alistair from the Heritage Foundation then, please? Okay. Alistair.
Hi. I haven't prepared a presentation as such, because I thought it was just really feeding back on things that we're doing, things that we're thinking about doing, and how things are going in general. So I've kind of just made quite a long list. Actually, it's a lot longer than I thought it would be when I started. But anyway, I'll crack on and hopefully get through it. And if you, I don't know if you want to ask questions at the end, or you want to ask a question as I go through things, I'm happy to work it either way. So, you know, cinema's back open, and it's proving very, very popular, and we've had a really good response around attendance. We were a bit concerned or unsure how people would take going to the cinema, because we've seen from other events that, especially community-based things, that people have been kind of less confident, but it's been very popular, and we've had really good feedback around the COVID measures and how the staff have been and the interaction. So that's been a really positive, and I can't resist a plug for Sci-Fi Film Week, 25th of June to 8th of July. Some old favourites like Aliens, Blade Runner, and then Solaris, and we've also got a world premiere of Lightship. So it's very, very exciting times at the cinema, and pleased to see that it's going really, really well. The farm's been open, it's ticket entry only, it's set within the COVID regulations, but again, it's been incredibly well received. I think people have just really enjoyed having that space to go to, especially with the way the weather's been of late. So that's been, again, very popular and selling out really. So that's another go and meet and be outside. Arts, culture and heritage is continuing to kind of gather pace, really. We had a grant from the Arts Council, and we're kind of putting funding in ourselves, and what we're trying to do is create a core funding model where we can operate the arts, culture and heritage with core funding, but then all the teams within that will be going out and looking for external funding to support the different activities that they're doing, whether that's out in the community or additional to the core offer. So that's quite a shift from us 100% funding. More, we're now moving away to a kind of mixed funding model, which is quite a change, but it's starting well, and it looks like there are plenty of projects in the pipeline, and we're just now looking at how we develop that funding model to support some of those projects. The the gallery's been hosting events which have been ticket only. They've just had Fiona Curran, who's a local artist, an international national artist, and also a lecturer at the Royal College of Art. So that was that was a very prestigious artist to have within exhibiting in Letchworth, which is fantastic. The cafe area, Chris is looking to create it as a community space, almost like there'll be a kettle there and there'll be a pot of coffee and a pot of tea and some tea bags. And if groups want to come in and use it, then they can. And if they want to make a donation to the tea, the coffee and the milk, that'd be great. But really, he wants to kind of see local groups, local people just coming up and using that space, which again is a positive thing, and hopefully it'll build a sense of community within the gallery. They've also just started an outreach program. We're in the process of kind of developing that at the moment, because it's really important that we can take art out into the community and it's not kept within a building in the centre of town, which for some people might feel it's not quite for them. So it's great to kind of be thinking about how we can take the art that's happening in the gallery out into the community. And the first stage in that is to run family arts based sessions out on the Jackmans, and we're in the process of developing those sessions, and those sessions will reflect what's happening in the gallery itself. So there's kind of a natural connection between the gallery in the centre of town and the arts and crafts activities that are happening in the community, and we hope through that to be able to encourage those families that are taking part in those activities into the gallery as part of that piece of work over the summer holidays. So there'll be about 4 or 5 different activities across the holidays, hopefully leading to an activity at the gallery. The arts, we've also set up a youth arts forum. They've met a couple of times. At the last forum, it was really more of a kind of community engagement type activity, where we worked with the group to look at what they felt they'd like to see for young people. The group itself is kind of age 16 to 23. So is what would they like to see in Letchworth? What would kind of enhance art, culture and heritage for them and for their peers in Letchworth? So we kind of kicked that piece of work off, and they began to put their thoughts together, and then we're going to be coming back and revisiting that with them to see what it may or may not be possible to kind of deliver, which is really, really exciting. And the museum has been out and about. We haven't been able to open our indoor museum because of the layout of the building. It's not quite conducive with the kind of making it sort of 100% COVID secure. So we've taken the decision to go out into the community, and Josh has been out with a roaming museum, and he's been to Wilbury, Norton, Jackman's, Broadway, and a few other places over the last few weeks. And we also ran a combined session with the Acorns group that are running up on the Jackmans. And the idea behind that was, again, was to kind of combine two different groups, work together, and it gave an opportunity to talk to quite a cross section of the community to find out what they wanted to see happening in terms of heritage in their community. And that means that we can use the feedback that we've received and the ideas that we've got from people as a basis to go to other funders to begin to look at accessing wider funding to run the types of activities that people are outlining and saying they would like to see within their community, which, again, going back to what I said before, it's very much a kind of different way of working. And we're looking at that. How do we kind of co-design the activities that we run? What does that look like? So we're going out and working with groups that already are working within the community to run activities, and then we can work with the people that they're working with, and they can give us those ideas, and we can then look at how we can create an opportunity for some funding to enable the ideas that they're seeing to come to fruition. So that again, very different way of working, but all very, very exciting stuff. Moving slightly away from arts, culture and heritage, but staying with the concept of funding. The government introduced some funding, and Hertfordshire called it the Happy Programme. And basically what it is, it's an opportunity for children who receive free school meals to access 4 hours of activity a day during the summer holidays. And we've been working with, hopefully I'll get this right, Stevenage Football Club Foundation and Premier Education and the head teachers in Letchworth to look at how we could create a town-wide offer. And we think, and so that actually we've got coverage across the whole town rather than one school trying to do it and another school trying to do it. So we've kind of come together and sort of coordinated a town-wide approach, and we've got Stonehill, Grange, Wilbury, Pixmore, Fernhill and Highfield all participating in the programme, providing we receive the funding. And Stevenage Football Club Foundation and Premier Education will be providing the sports leaders, the arts leaders, the activity people who will deliver the 4 hours a day for 4 days a week. Children can book on for 1 day or they can book on for 4 days. It's a kind of, it just depends on the family circumstances. So it's kind of interesting really when you go and look at the data, and it picks up on what Emma was saying. There's a school in Letchworth that's got 48% of its children on free school meals, and those are the children in years 3 to year 6. So you kind of think about that, and that's quite a considerable number of children each day in that one school. That doesn't include years 1 and 2 and reception, because they get a free school meal because it's only at year 3 that you start to register for a free school meal. And I think within the primary sector, though, I think when we looked around, I think there were 451 children in years 3 to 6 who receive a free school meal. And I think we've managed to create a programme that has around, across the summer holidays, only about 360 places, but that's down to a combination of capacity, schools participating. And the thing that really was an issue, and I'll be quite honest with you, as part of the programme, we have to provide a cooked meal. Sounds quite easy on the surface, but if you want to do that in a school, the canteen is there, but actually the staff there, they're term time only. They may not want to work during the holidays, and the catering companies that run it don't necessarily have freelance staff that they can bring in. And you know, we did raise that it's okay in some towns where you have these setups, but actually it's really difficult. And we're hoping that because we've put together a town-wide type bid with around 60 to 90 children each week, with places for 60 to 90 children, that Hearts Catering, who are providing catering for the programme, will set up a base in Letchworth. If they don't, the best they can offer is a maximum of a half-hour car journey to pick up the food. So I'm panicking a bit, because 90 children's meals in a car or a number of cars might mean I have to hire a transit van and add to the fun and games of getting those meals back and then getting them back warm at the right temperature, so we don't risk any illness or ill health. So that was fed back into the process, but it's a really difficult thing in a place like Letchworth, where you don't necessarily have big community groups in community halls with who are always kind of have a cooking group every Thursday and lots of volunteers and things. So that's the kind of one thing that we're hoping they'll set up, and then we'll kind of be in a good place really. But that total application, if it comes through, is around £46,000, which will be amazing. And it'd be great though. It would be great because it will offer so much for so many children who maybe won't get that many opportunities over the summer, and especially with lockdown and the things we've been through in the last year. I think it would be a great opportunity. We've continued to give grant to the food bank towards their warehouse, which goes without saying. There's such a distinct need in Letchworth for it. Their figures are the same as they were a year ago, so it's clearly kind of no dropping off in terms of levels of need for the work that the food bank does. In terms of our grant programme, we've had 2 rounds to date. We set a budget of around £120,000. It's a community-based grant programme, and to date we've spent around £52,000, which is not bad. It's on track. It's half. We've had 2 of the 4 funding rounds, and we're halfway through. So hopefully we'll continue, but it doesn't. It feels like it's tailing off slightly. It feels like there's a bit of a rush at the beginning, so it would be interesting to see exactly how much community activities is going to come through over the next 3 to 5 months. In terms of the grants, we awarded grants to growing people to support the work they're doing with mental health, TTL, the MS Therapy Centre, Letchworth Swimming Club, Letchworth Corner Sports Club, and the King's Community Church, which I think you guys funded as well, towards the porter cabin, so that they can have additional storage space to support the work that they're doing on the Jackmans in terms of food provision. And then our next grants committee meeting is the end of July, and where we'll consider the next round. In wider terms, looking at our kind of strategic priorities, we've recognised that there's kind of significant need in Letchworth around support and advice around financial management, and we're working with Citizens Advice, Settle, First Garden City Homes, and NHDC's housing team to look at what kind of triggers some of this and what it actually looks like locally, and how the advice is offered. So at the moment we're kind of working with the 3 main providers to understand the type of advice they offer, what they're seeing being presented, and then looking at how we collect data from all 3 groups that we can feed in monthly, so we can begin to get an overall town-wide picture of exactly what's happening in terms of access, in terms of the type of support that's needed, equally in terms of what the levels of debt might be and what are the main benefits. It's been quite interesting so far, because I think we've been kind of gathering data loosely for the last 6 months, and 73% of those accessing the service have been female. And most of the males accessing the service have been over 55. So it's just great. It's interesting to track the data, because actually there may well be a trend there, and you can look at age ranges, you can look at areas. The one thing that is interesting about it is the areas are fairly flat. In other words, you're seeing an equal amount of people from different parts of the town. There's not one place that's more significant than another. But it's not just about being reactive. We're looking at strategies about how we can be proactive, how we can kind of work with people in a more proactive fashion as a partnership, and learning about how we all do that. So that's a kind of part of it's only just really started, but everybody's quite kind of excited to do it, and it's great to get everybody around the table and just sharing what we all do, and making everybody aware of how different people, different organisations are approaching basically similar challenges, and also when it starts to throw things up, what we'd like to do is again look at how we can work with groups in the town to sort of access some external funding that will allow us to address some of the wider issues that we're seeing, rather than addressing things as a singular, it's a debt benefit issue. When you kind of peel back the skin of the onion, what other support, what other help, what other kind of needs are there, and what could that look like, and how could that be facilitated within the town? So that's, again, that's looking at that kind of a more strategic level. At the same time, staying with that, we give a grant to the Letchworth Family Support Team, we give them a grant of about £90,000, which is match funded by the schools and funding from Hertfordshire County Council, which is statutory funding. And they work with children who are at risk of being excluded from school, and they go working with the families and the child and the school. So there's a kind of triangle there to ensure that to look at the issues and ensure the child stays within school. Looking at the data for the last year, that the county council have Hertfordshire County Council have what they call a family first assessment, and across North Herts last year, Letchworth had 49 family first assessments. Hitchin had 27. Baldock had 15, I think. So in terms of level of need per, if you want to call it, per percentage of residents or whatever, Letchworth is significantly kind of higher than its kind of nearest neighbour. So it justifies the funding, but at the same time, again, working with the family support team, it's just trying to understand what's happening, what support's needed, what wider support might be needed to help families, and what that could look like, and also the knock-on effects and the types of partners they're working with and how smooth that kind of linkage is. So that's quite another kind of more strategic approach to things. I mentioned the grant programme and said that it's around £120,000. We've taken a conscious decision this year to move away from grant funding. And what we want to do is a combination of things. We want to look at more long-term commissioning type work to support key strategic aims, and also granting specific projects that we think will have will complement our strategic objectives, rather than relying, or when I say relying, rather than kind of waiting to see if somebody comes along for a grant that just happens to be something that Letchworth needs. That's where we want to go out and actually say, well, actually, here's something that we're seeing and it links across to here. How could we support that with a grant? What could that look like? You know, there's a lot of kind of, it looks like things like mental health are there. It could be that that's something that we say, well, actually, maybe we should be looking to commission something around mental health, but how would it look? How would it work in practice? And how does it tie in with existing services and what they're already doing? And also the final piece of work is around social action and volunteering, and looking at how we can work either within communities or within existing organisations to support the development of volunteering, whatever that looks like, because volunteering isn't necessarily turning up every Thursday and doing a set thing. It could be an hour, or it could be something that you're passionate about, that you want to see change, that you want to improve your neighbourhood. What could that look like? How could that work? So it's a little bit of a work in progress at the moment, because it's about just determining. So we're going to go out and talk to a lot of different groups and get some thoughts together and see how that could shape, and then look at how much funding we've got and see how we could turn that into some local action to make sure that we have the most impact with the funding that we've got available. But again, that's a commitment for 3 to 5 years. We're not just doing it as a one-off. And same with the commissioning. If we commission something, we'll be commissioning for kind of 3 or possibly 5 years. So, sorry, that's quite a lot to take on board, but that's a kind of general summary. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say, with a lot of the things that we're doing across all the board, we're looking at kind of, in the commercial sector where you've got the cinema and the farm and things like that, and the gallery, and where the gallery might be commercial, we're looking at kind of audience development. So we're looking at the audiences that go to these venues, and maybe the audiences that aren't necessarily accessing the venues, and what would they want to see to access it more, or what would they want to see to access it once or twice. And then with the more strategic work, we're looking at building personas and of families, of individuals, of residents, so we can get a picture of what it looks like, and actually we working with the group to create kind of focus groups so that we can actually get more of that more lived experience feeding into the picture of who's accessing services, etc. And then we can utilize that to again look at funding, but also to shape the service, or to shape the support that people receive rather than service. Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
That's brilliant, Alistair. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Alistair. I've got a couple of quick questions following that up. Have you considered asking the private sector about the hot meals rather than just going through Hearts Catering? Have you considered looking at the private sector?
I've been everywhere, and to be honest, I think, you know, when we were writing the bid in May, that a lot of private sector organised. So I went to Sodexo, I've been to all the school caterers, but and then privately they didn't necessarily have staff because of the arrangement and all that sort of thing. They didn't necessarily have the staff.
Yeah, I was meaning approaching companies like Koi Koi, like Latista, like individual companies.
Right. Okay. Yes, we looked at that, but the funding. The funding application has to fit with the government guidelines on healthy eating and school meals, and it just became a bit tricky, if that makes sense. There's a kind of long 32-page document that kind of states what you can and can't eat, and what portion sizes are like and things like that. So I get where you're coming from. Yeah, we did consider it, and we may revisit it. It might be a kind of opportunity. So we'll see. Hopefully we've got such sufficient kind of take up that they will want to set up in one of the Letchworth schools.
And then my other question was about the Spirella Ballroom. Is that going to be open again for weddings, or is that something that's being mothballed for the moment?
I think at the moment it's being mothballed just whilst we work through what's best how we can best utilise it.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Does anybody else?
Obviously, with you know the challenge with the ballroom is it's on the top floor and you have to use a lift. And with COVID, you can probably only have one person in the lift, and not everybody wants to walk the five flights of steps.
Totally understand that. Does anybody else have any questions for Alistair? Okay. Can't see any hands going up. I think you've gotten away lightly, Alistair.
I mean, if you think of anything afterwards, you want to email in, do that. And, you know, if you want to know more about any of the elements or want to get involved, just let me know. And
excellent.
Through more detail.
Well, thank you so much. In that case, we will move on to number 7. Claire Morgan, I believe you are going to present the grant application.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. I'm sure members will have had time to have a look through the report for this meeting that's been on the uploaded for the last couple of weeks. Shall we do the grant first, and then I'll take you through how much money you've got to spend, which is sort of the important bit, isn't it? Obviously, this is the or it would have been the first meeting in the civic year, so you've got a new budget. And there was a small amount carried over from last year. So your budget for this year is 11,000, but because you carried over an amount, you've actually got 13,800 to spend within 4 meetings. So if you want to agree the amount requested, 2,940, that would leave you with 10,860 in the budget. However, as it's already been mentioned, the group have put in an application for 2,000 to the Heritage Foundation, who are going to be meeting at the end of July. So perhaps members might like to think about giving them the amount minus that 2,000, which will get them started for the the summer holidays, because obviously the summer holidays would have started by the time they find out whether they're getting the Heritage Foundation grant.
Claire?
I think I've got anything to add to the details of the grant, because Chris went into it in great detail.
Claire, is it possible for us to agree to have them back? Because I know there's a limited number of times you can come before the committee, so that if after the 900 they don't receive the 2,000, we can find a way around that.
There's not a limited time for people to come back anymore. We changed that in the criteria in at the beginning of 2020, so they could come back. So we could give them the 900 and whatever it is. Check. What's there?
40, I think, Claire.
Okay. We could give them that amount. Yeah, 940. And then if they are unsuccessful, they could come back in October.
Mm-hmm. Right. Does anybody have anything they would like to say or put forward at this point? Yes, Councillor Grindle.
Well, I'm more than happy to make the recommendation, Chair. And it is just a recommendation, just to be clear, that we're not taking a vote on it at the moment. But we agreed the £940 based on the discussions we've had. I'm also mindful, of course, this is just the first meeting of the civic year, and I strongly suspect that we're going to be a chance that we could be inundated with requests to support many worthy good causes. But, you know, fingers crossed the Heritage Foundation can help out. Councillor Terry Hone has suggested that he might be able to help out as well from his own locality budget. So I'm more than happy to recommend the amount, and if there are issues, as you say, they are more than welcome to come back.
Thank you, Councillor Grindle. Councillor Mantle.
Yes, I'll support that. But what I was also thinking, we have 2 other county councillors covering at least parts of Letchworth, so perhaps they ought to be approached. And also, if we're asking the officers to make the decision under emergency powers, if something goes horribly wrong further on, I hope that the officers will use their emergency powers again as necessary to make sure that this organisation can continue to operate.
Okay, Councillor Aspinall.
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of want to echo what Councillor Mantle just said there, and I just wanted to point out that as a committee, what I was hearing was that we're all very much in support of this work, and really want to be able to empower you to carry on and give what's needed. So I realise that it might feel a bit frustrating to need to go to lots of different organisations and go through this, and so yeah, I think I just wanted to kind of re-emphasise what Councillor Grindle was saying there around the need to be quite conservative at this stage in the civic year. So yeah, just great work. Thanks for coming along. And if it doesn't work out, then I hope that we do see you again.
Thank you, Councillor Aspinall. Councillor Hone.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I know Chris has come to me around locality budgets. I'm sure that he would have gone to the other 1.5 Letchworth County councillors and asked them for a contribution because he's on the ball on those sorts of things. So I'm sure he would have done that. If he doesn't, then he's on this call, and he no doubt will. Yeah?
Excellent. Okay. We will vote.
Yes, you can take a vote, but you're voting to recommend.
Basically, we will take a vote to recommend at the moment of the 940. So if I can ask everyone to use the yes button if they want to vote yes, the no button if they want to vote no, and the raise hand button if they wish to abstain. Okay. And I believe we have more than enough councillors there to say that we approve this. Can I confirm that with you, Claire?
Yes,
Yes, I can confirm that.
2, 3, 4, 5 yeses.
Excellent. Okay, in that case, that will be the recommendation.
Was that for 940?
Beg your pardon?
Was that for the amount of 940?
That's for the amount of 940, yes. Okay. That's the recommendation that we will send to you.
And can I also clarify that it's not officer's decision, it's the executive member for community engagement in consultation with the service director for legal and community.
Excellent, thank you.
That's how it works. So if I just go ahead with a few little updates that aren't in the report, and if anybody's got any questions about anything in the contents of the report, then please give me a wave or put your hand up. I just wanted to also talk about the food provision network and the work we've been doing with them. There is some funding we've received from County Council, and we've been providing supermarket vouchers and some direct funding to these groups across the district. I just thought I'd highlight the ones in Letchworth that we've provided these vouchers to, which is the Rawbury Community Forum, the Letchworth Food Bank, King's Community Church, and the Letchworth Schools Partnership have all had or all benefited from that scheme. And there's still some funding left in there, so we could also top up the Make Lunch project.
That sounds like a fantastic idea.
And the only other thing was, I know Chris Wilson was unable to make it, but I just quickly saw an article that the Comet have put out for tomorrow's Comet about the Food and Drink Festival and whether it is or isn't going ahead. Under the current restrictions, and Chris Wilson was saying in the comment that it is going ahead, and that's taking place on the 25th, 26th, 27th. And he did give a presentation at a meeting I was at the Heritage Foundation yesterday, saying that it was really going well, and he was very impressed with the amount of different food and drink stalls that were going to be there. So I thought I would just sort of feed that back here, so that members are aware that there are lots of events going on in the town centre. I think that's everything I've got to feed back, unless anyone's got any questions on the report.
No, it looks like you've again got away with this one. Okay. Does anyone have any ward matters or anything they would like to bring up from outside groups at all? I'd like to bring up, I am on the Letchworth Civic Trust. Letchworth Civic Trust gives grants to anybody going to university from the town. So please do, if you've not heard of it, have a look into that, and do make sure that anyone that you know that is heading to university or into into further education does approach the Civic Trust to get a nice grant.
Or apprenticeship, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Ian. I appreciate that. Anybody else? In that case, I shall bring this informal meeting to an end. Thank you so much for coming to us today, for members of the public. And yeah, we will close it there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you. Good night.
Well done, everyone. Well done, Louis.
Thank you. See you later.